Hello students, welcome to this lecture on estimating the ring oscillator design and its frequency. The ring oscillator circuit as such is very important in measuring not only the fabrication process, whether it has worked well for a particular technology node, as well as it can provide a clock frequency on its own. So let's have a look at the design first, and then we will try to understand why it is so important for verifying the manufacturing process. Okay, so let me try to draw this inverter first, and then through the inverter, the ring oscillator will be designed. So let me take up a single inverter. So if I take up a single inverter and let me draw the gate level circuit so that it becomes much easier for us to estimate what should be the delay. So this is the input, the PMOS and NMOS transistor tied together giving an input. The parasitic capacitance here will be nothing but 3C, assuming it will be a unit inverter having a size of 2:1, that is 1 for the unit NMOS transistor and the size of 2 for the PMOS transistor. So overall, I'll get a 3C capacitance. All right. So the overall delay for, whether it is a propagation delay falling or the propagation delay rising. All right. So it will be nothing but the switching resistance of R. So this will be the switching resistance of R. This will be the switching resistance of R here. So it will be nothing but 3R into C. Right. So let me use this 2:1 inverter and then try to connect one more 2:1 inverter. So if I use one more 2:1 inverter, what we are seeing is its own parasitic will be of 3C capacitance. And at the input side, this particular, the second stage inverter is going to give me one more 3C capacitance at the input side. Right, so overall put together, this will be nothing but 6C capacitance. So now the overall delay for the two inverters which are there. So from input side to the output side. All right, so I'm going to write it like this: O/P is the output one. So I will get a propagation delay of so TPDF is equal to TPDR. And I'm going to say that this will be, equal to 6RC. All right. And if I try to normalize this, so the delay normalized, so denormalized will be nothing but 6RC divided by the 2:1 inverters, the benchmark inverter will be 3RC, so it will be 2. All right. Now, the question is, what if I connect one more inverter here? And so on. So if I do n such inverters, cascaded inverters, I'll actually get the overall delay as 2 into n. All right. Okay, moving forward. So the ring oscillator is actually designed by the cascaded inverters design, and the output of n such inverter, the output of the nth inverter is fed back as an input to the first inverter. So that's how we'll get the output of this, which is nothing but the input of this. So if I probe at any point A and B, that will give me some kind of a signal, which is nothing but we call it as an oscillating signal. So it will oscillate from 0 to 1, and it will be a self-sustained oscillating signal. Right. So this could be considered as a clock signal also. Now let's see why we are getting this kind of a clock signal, and which periodically repeats. So there is a time period, and then there is an associated or characterized frequency with this particular ring oscillator output signal. So if I consider the first inverter here, so the 1 represents the first inverter, 2 represents the second inverter, 3 represents the third, and then the n represents the n inverter. So if I consider the first inverter, and if I provide a high signal here, so if I take out this particular inverter, which is cascaded to the next stage, so if I want to find out what is the delay of this, so I'll provide an input signal here, high input, and then I'll measure what is the output here. It will be a low output, but how much time it takes. So from 1 to 0 for the first inverter, it will take 3RC, 3C coming from its own parasitic capacitance, and the next 3RC, where the 3C is coming from the input capacitance of the second stage, divided by 3RC, and that's what 1 plus 1 will be 2. So if I have such n such inverters, so the delay from point A, the input, to the point B, which is the output, will be nothing but 2n. Okay, because the delay of one inverter is 2. So the normalized delay, for the n inverters, so this is a normalized value. So what I have calculated here, the absolute value will always be multiplied by 3RC. So the normalized value of the n inverter will be nothing but 2 into n. Right, so and I have written it as the falling delay, and then the rising delay turns out to be 2n and 2n. Right, note that the B output of this is also connected to the input of 1. Right, so even if I'm trying to consider what should be the delay of this nth inverter, it will be nothing but the 3RC coming from its own parasitic capacitance, as well as the input capacitance of the first inverter. And that's why we have a 6RC here as well for the nth inverter, divided by 3RC will be nothing but 2. So that's why for the n such inverters, I will get 2 into n. Hope that is clear. So what we are seeing is, so for 1 to 0, we have 2n delay, and then for 0 to 1, we have 2n delays. So if I take odd number of inverters, I will actually get, after 2n delay, if the input is 0, after 2n delay, right, I will get the high output, which is fed back to the input. Right, so after 2n delay, so this is the time t is equal to 0, right, and after 2n delay, I'll get the high output, which is nothing but the input again, and then after 2n delay, I will actually get the low output. Right, so this will be 4n. So the time period overall from 0 to getting the next cycle will be from 0 to 4n. So the overall time period will be the 4n. Right, 4n multiplied by 3RC will be my absolute value, which will be nothing but 12RC into n. So the frequency here will be nothing but 1 by 12RC into n. If R and C, if it is 1 picoseconds, 1 femtofarads and 1 kilo ohms, or you can consider 10 kilo ohms and then 0.1 femtofarads. And if I put an n value of 31 here, so the overall time period will be nothing but 12 picoseconds multiplied by 31. The frequency turns out to be 1 by 12 into 1 picosecond multiplied by 31, which will be nothing but 2.68 gigahertz. Now this is a very important parameter, because this R and C value, I've considered it for 65 nanometer technology node. And this becomes a very important parameter because when we are developing a chip, so I have a lot of area covered for the other circuits. So there are a lot of circuits here, and then there are a lot of interconnects connecting to the circuit. Somewhere at the corners, we will have the ring oscillator design, somewhere at the corners. And while we fabricate it, while everything is done, once we get the chip out of it, we should be able to test out the frequency of this ring oscillator. And for a 65 nanometer technology node, if it gives a frequency of 2.68 gigahertz, that represents that the corners, even the corners, while it is fabricating, right, even the corners are giving a frequency of 2.68. That means that the fabrication process has been done perfectly, right? There is no problem in the fabrication. So generally the fabrication process is such a way that in the middle region, there won't be any problems. The problems arises only when, the circuits goes closer to the boundary. That is when most of the process, diffusion process or the deposition process tends to have a different profile. So that's the reason why we have the ring oscillator circuits attached to the corner. And if this particular value of n is equal to 31, so 31 stage inverter ring oscillator will be created at the corners. And if it gives, or if it, after the verification, if it gives 2.68 gigahertz, then we say that the chip is working perfectly fine. Right. So if there is any kind of a deviation with respect to 2.68, then we'll have to give it back to the manufacturers, or there is always a tolerance level which we can characterize for this particular chip, and then proceed further. Right. In that sense, I think the ring oscillator is very, very useful. The other aspect of the ring oscillator is it provides a kind of a clock frequency. So a frequency of 2.68 can be self-generated by the circuit without giving any kind of an external power. So sometimes the ring oscillator is also used, if you want an external, not only the one clock, but if you want a different clock, it can be generated well within the circuit. Especially it is used for many of the mixed signal circuits where the analog circuits are also there, and we want an external clock. Right. So in that sense, the ring oscillator design is very, very useful, and it turns out to be a very simple design where we have a cascaded inverters fed back to the input of the first inverter. Okay. Hope you have understood this particular aspect of the ring oscillator.